What profession was once highly respected, but is now a complete joke? My dad used to have can operate emails on his CV in the 90s. Email operator. Ah. Yeah. How times have changed. Now it's can operate tweets. Double quote. Someone who describes themselves as an entrepreneur. This is actually what I do and there's no other word to describe it. I'm part inventor, part businessman, part marketing person, part patent attorney, etc. It's a seriously difficult thing to do. Feel free to make fun of it, and if you can come up with something else to call it, please let me know. I'm not wild about the title. I like the work. Every single company whose products you enjoy was founded by an entrepreneur at some point. Congress right now, honestly. When was Congress respected? A therapist, a life coach, diet coach, etc. I'm not talking about educated, licensed therapists with legit degrees. I'm talking about this massive amount of people on social media advertising themselves as quasi-therapists. As a person with an actual master's degree in social work, nothing infuriates me more than some asshole with an online life coaching certification acting as if our levels of experience and know-how are comparable. They are not. The presidency. Growing up, I never thought I'd be ashamed of our country. Elementary school made the past presidents seem so great and so wise. I wonder what future elementary students will make of Trump. All the name calling and blatant lies and just the straight up nonsense. It makes me sad that all of us from this time period will be judged harshly for even electing this moron in the first place. Travel agent. Which is a big mistake. I use one for all my travel now and she organized everything cheaper than I could. Had great advice for everything. Packaged it all together and took her commissions from the places I booked instead of from me. A good travel agent is amazing and saves so much time. Webmaster. Or anyone in a position of power on the internet. For some reason the internet gives the dregs of humanity power over other people. Lace makers. Used to be a very skilled profession that took years to learn and over a decade to master. But, because it was so labor intensive, lace was sold at very high prices. Now, it probably only takes a few months to get comfortable with the machines that make it. And of course, the laborers are Chinese sweatshop workers. It's interesting how technology alters our perception of the value and beauty of something. My grandparents thought lace was the classiest thing and I always thought it was tacky. Similarly with aspic and gelatin based foods. Went from special occasion fancy rich people's food to a novel treat to meh in a generation. Journalism. It's basically the swirl doge meme, where the old school journalist is the buff doge wearing an M1 helmet on the front lines in Vietnam and the modern journalist is the timid doge wearing cat's eye glasses and writing about celebrity astrological signs. Milkman. Feels bad man. Open bracket. Hey. My husband is a milkman. And my kids look like him too. A secretary. If I am remembering correctly, historically it was extremely respected until keyboards became more mainstream. Women started taking the job more often happened. And it becoming more common in the workplace. Secretary morphed into admin. It's still a pretty respectful position. Though with modern technology, companies need fewer admins per person. Priest. Once upon a time they ran schools, orphanages and hospitals. Bishops in charge of major systems were technically vow of poverty but had all the perks and in essence the lifestyle of a major CEO. Now it's can you be an amateur plumber as well as psychologist and cleric to keep this rickety church going. And by the way we need you to drive to 3 or 4 other parishes because of a shortage. Oh. And try and endure the kiddie fucker jokes without snapping. Teachers. Stroke. Honestly. Teachers have it the worst. Many people like to talk shitty about teachers. But what they don't get is that it's one of the hardest professions to be in. Many people in my country think that teachers have it easy with online school. But that's just wrong. The system had failed miserably. Quarantine showed us that we're not even in the vicinity of being prepared for online schools. Many teachers and parents of kids I've talked to just completely shitty on online systems. These things crash, are hard to orientate in, and half of the time don't even f***ing work properly. The most commonly used system in universities in Slovakia, AIS2, even got the nickname AIDS2. That's how bad it is. Phrenologist, or retrophrenologists. They give you the lumps to modify your personality. Groom of the stool. My ancestor Henry Norris did that job. I guess it was pretty important to protect the health of the sovereign in a home crowded with people. He was accused of sleeping with the Queen for some reason. His family protected Elizabeth later and she made it up to the family in a lot of ways. We have a monument at Westminster and thanks so it wasn't all poop. Phone operator. My aunt was a phone operator, complete with switchboard lines. Police officer. Maybe in America. Cooks chefs. Majority overworked and underpaid. Between shitty national chain restaurants choking the life of small chef family run restaurants and the only decent paying positions being with companies like Aramark or Sodexo, it is not surprising that being a chef just is not what it once was. I don't think we were ever highly respected, but definitely less now. Alchemist. Kids these days can't respect the art without getting all fancy and wanting their alchemy to be fully metal and all the jazz. Exorcist. The power of Christ compels you. Philosophers. Of course, when information was limited only to the elite, most of the population were illiterate. And all you need to do is to sit around in a library all day and study. Then you could be well versed enough in most matters. Nowadays most of the fields are so specialized that people have to dedicate their whole lives just to make a little contribution in one field. So hardly anybody can be considered experts in several fields at once. Queen of England. Honestly, the monarchy invented Parliament for a reason. They are a public figure and the Queen is an amazing lovely old woman. I've never heard a bad thing said about her. Unfortunately, I do believe that they should be more active in the government and power, however we don't know anything behind the scenes. And let's be honest, she is over 90 years old now, let her retire. School bus driver. When I was in elementary school back in the Stone Ages, I loved my bus driver. She was an older lady who gave us candy sometimes. Now they're overworked, underpaid referees. My school bus driver never made eye contact with the passengers and drove at a consistent speed regardless of the speed limit or potholes. They wanted to get home as much as I did. Flight attendants. I have mad respect for them. People used to wear suits and dresses on a flight and act respectably. Now people fart the whole flight, walk around in slippers with their headrest on, and fight flight attendants. It's like working a Greyhound bus now. Doesn't mean profession is a joke. Just people became more disrespectful and self-entitled pricks. Shoe cobbler. Why repair? Buy a new pair. I have one pair of heels that I will search high and low to find a cobbler when work is needed on them. Politicians. This needs far more traction. These people run the show and the lion's share of them are a complete and utter disgrace, regardless of their affiliation. Blacksmith. Dunno. I have a cousin that is a blacksmith. And when people hear that, the first question people ask at a tourist place? And that answer is no. He does it as a job. Along with bladesmithing. He got into it as a hobby after being laid off. And turns out people pay quite a bit for handmade blacksmith-made items. Any YouTube video where some random guy starts by saying something like, "Hey guys, do you want to know how to make money?" Those guys are losers. Yeah. But the question was what job was once highly respected, and I don't think those shats were ever respected though. Rapper. It wasn't highly respected, but these days it's a massive joke. Kendrick Lamar literally has a Pulitzer. Lawyers. I agree. People think that Google is a good substitute for an actual lawyer. Still wrong. But they think it. Pharmacist. Unless you're clinical but retail, you're a McDonald's manager. Scrimshender. The only reason people don't respect that is because they don't know people are still doing it. Anyone that knows a scrimshanda respects the craft. IT. Between Google and YouTube videos and the ease of access and customization when it comes to PCs. Anyone can work on computer hardware or software. That and technology maintenance has become fairly common as technology continues to pervade human life at increasing levels. All but the most complicated issues can be solved in a matter of minutes. Or at least diagnosed to the point that next steps are clear. Personal banker. Used to be someone you got to know well and went to for financial advice. Now they are glorified telemarketers and customer service reps. And don't forget about the sales goals. Focus has shifted from how can I help people with their finances to how can we open more accounts. Source. Me. I'm a personal banker. Chiropractors. They sound quite informed until you realize their profession is based on pseudoscience. Astrologer. In the Middle Ages, kings kept personal astrologers. They were actually considered serious scientists. Taxi drivers. They used to have to take tests and memorize street maps and know the fastest way around the area. Now people seem to treat them like they're some sort of failure. Not that I think that. People just seem to act like they are, and it's pretty sad cause it would be such a hard job. Pope. Catholicism has gone down. And the Pope has little to do with any kingdom now. Photographer. Let's see. Any political position. School counselors, advisors, informants. School nurses. News reporters. Phone call ITS. Sadly, a few medical professionals. A certain web designer that thinks they can reinvent travel despite showing no understanding of physics, engineering, and kinetic energy. Not sure if ever respected per se, but massage therapist masseurs. Many see it as a branch of prostitution. But in reality it's a practice that not only relaxes but does miracles for pain relief. If all those complaining about back pain got massages instead of popping pills, we wouldn't have as much of an opioid addiction problem. My chosen profession is a music venue bar manager. I say this sprinkled liberally with salt. Screenwriter. The days when writers became famous primarily for their big screen scripts are done. We are unlikely to see the likes of Dalton Trumbo, Lee Brackett, Robert Towne, or William Goldman ever again. We still have wonderful script writers around, but they tend to work as showrunners, or many directors and novelists pull double credits, which was true in the past as well. Doctors. It's really sad. They are forced to be minions of insurance companies and hospital administration. Trucking been driven 10 years and every year the new drivers coming in and the civilian drivers just keep thinking that trucking is nothing but a joke. In Sri Lanka during the times of kings there were highly respected group of advisors known as pandiths. Today's it's an insult to call someone a pandith. Times change. Plumbers and their need have really gone down the toilet over the years. Locomotive engineer. At one time it was like being an astronaut. Now it is often just being a locomotive robotic systems operator. My terminology. Insurance salesperson. Influencers. I mean, it wasn't that respected, but at least it wasn't a complete joke. Now YouTubers and TikTokers are a joke and influencers are hated. Also Disney stars. Used to be a little less shitty. The entirety of Walmart. It's hard working there. But the stereotype has turned us into the McDonald's of the retail shopping business. Airline. Cruise. In general. Pilots were idolized. The stewardess were like models with brains. Now they are trapped between hordes of Karens. Raced to the bottom levels of cheap management. And government oversight. SNL has skits. News runs headlines that read like Florida Man. Double quote. Physicians. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes they're respected. But so many people are convinced they know better with a 5-minute Google session and the minimum 11 years their doctor spent in college, medical school, and residency to learn to take care of them. Not to mention the years of experience as a practicing physician after training. Jesters. Believe it or not, the jester was sometimes one of the few rational people that the king would listen to. The best example is the mythical Wei Yushi, who managed to persuade the Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huang not to paint the Great Wall of China, saving several lives. Full stop. In addition, the jesters had the legitimate power to laugh at everything and everyone. He was someone who used to use a more acid and cruel humor. So we can say that the jesters laughed, literally, in the face of the emperors and were rewarded with a noble life. Clowns. Jesters used to kick it with the king, now they just do kids' b-day parties.